Thankful for Brother Brantley, the songs that he has led today. I'm thankful for him more than just for the songs that he leads, for all the work that he's done here with this congregation over the years, and so many of you. It's good to see the Worleys. Always good to see them, that they're well enough to be here. I think there comes a time in people's lives when they get older. And yes, I'm getting older. That you kind of reflect back upon your life, how you have lived it. Have I led a good life? Have I led let's say, a successful life? And the way the world looks at success and the way that God looks at success are completely opposite. You remember the old bumper sticker, "He who dies with all the toys wins." I haven't seen that one in a long time, but that was kind of cute, kind of funny. But you know, a lot of people look at it that way. They really do. They want the best of everything. They want to have, and this is what success is to a lot of people in the world. They want to have the nicest house. They want to wear the nicest clothes, drive the nicest cars, eat the nicest foods, the nicest vacations, the nicest trinkets, you name it. Here's the thing. There's nothing wrong with any of that stuff. It's not wrong with being rich. It's not wrong for having possessions, or you and I would be doomed. Even bachelors have possessions. Usually somebody else's that they've handed down to you, family. But your possessions, and they mean something to you. Nothing wrong with that. The problem stems, and you know this, it comes from putting those things before God. And whatever we put before our God, guess what? That is our idol. That's what we really worship. That's what we really serve. And many today, and always will be this situation, that people will sell their souls to have material possessions. One such individual is in a parable of Jesus. Someone stated that he taught about a third of his lessons were in parables. This is the parable of the rich man, recorded in Luke chapter 12, beginning in verse 15. But here's an individual who lived his life this way in this parable. What is a parable? You're probably thinking, if I have to hear another explanation of what a parable is, well, I guess we just need to be reminded. It's a transliterated word from the Greek word parabole, P-A-R-A-B-O-L-E. So transliterated into English. King James does this, American Standard Version does this, New King James Version does this. A lot of the other modern versions, they don't do that, for obvious reasons. Parabole, para means beside, and bole means to cast. In other words, to cast alongside. It's that earthly story that would grab people's attentions in his day, and it still works that way. An earthly thought, an earthly belief, a teaching. Right along with that, though, is cast the spiritual meaning to that earthly story, that earthly account. And every parable has only one point. They taught us this in school, just one point. And yet, preachers are notorious for trying to make a number of points to these parables. Well, let's just call them little additions to it, still just one point. It's not an allegory where there's a number of points. There's just one. In the parable of the sower that we talked about recently, that one point is how one receives the word, the reception of that word. Here with the rich man is the warning of beware of covetousness. So let's notice this earthly story about this rich man. Luke 12, beginning in verse 15. And he said unto them, take heed. Now that should grab our attention right off from the get-go. Take heed and beware of covetousness. For a man's life consisteth not in the abundance of the things which he possesseth. And he spake a parable unto them, saying, the ground of a certain rich man brought forth plentifully. And he thought within himself, saying, what shall I do? Because I have no room where to bestow my fruits. And he said, this will I do. I will pull down my barns and build greater, and there will I bestow all my fruits and my goods. And I will say unto my soul, soul, thou hast much goods laid up for many years. Take thine ease, eat, drink, and be merry. But God had said unto him, thou fool, this night thy soul shall be required of thee. Then who shall those things be which thou hast provided? So is he that layeth up treasure for himself and is not rich toward God. There's the danger. In our Father's eyes, success is not about possessions. He doesn't care how rich we are or how poor. He doesn't care, again, if we have a lot of possessions or not. What he cares about is if we are, and we need to be, rich toward him and toward our fellow man, even our neighbors. David the psalmist wrote, a little that a righteous man hath is better than the riches of many wicked. Psalm 37, verse 16. Now you read this text, it is impossible not to notice the personal pronouns in these just a few verses. There are 6 instances of the word I that is used. There are 5 instances of the word my. You might think that he was a Pharisee in the making who thought a lot of themselves. Very proud, very arrogant man. He gave absolutely no credit to the God in heaven, which he should have. He took all the credit and gave none to God. Things don't change much, do they? Well, the Bible has to change to fit the needs of the modern man. Well, the modern man and all the sins that he commits, they did all these years ago, so why does it have to change? Still has the answers. Still God's word. It's better than our word, better than man's. But there are a number of accounts throughout the scriptures of people who had this same kind of attitude. One of the greatest kings who ever lived was a man called Nebuchadnezzar in a very powerful empire over the Babylonians. Great power, fierce king. He had this kind of attitude. It didn't last, but he did for a while. In going out one day, I can just picture him doing this. He states, recorded for our wisdom, is not this great Babylon that I have built for the house of the kingdom by the might of my power and for the honor of my majesty? Daniel 4:30 and what historians have stated about Babylon at this period of time with those hanging gardens and everything else. It was beautiful. Beautiful place. Before let's just put it this way. When he made this statement, right after, there was a voice from heaven. O King Nebuchadnezzar, to thee it is spoken, the kingdom is departed from thee. Verse 31. And it was. His mental faculties were basically taken from him. He was out there feeding on grass like the cattle. Well, how long was this going to take place? Well, verse 32, that chapter tells us, until thou know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men and giveth it to whomsoever he will. Daniel 4:32. Here's the thing. That still applies to us. Do we ever get caught up with who's the next king of America, the next president? What will he do? What will the other one do? Where will he lead this country? We're leaving someone out. God in heaven is still sitting on his throne. And God in heaven is still in charge over everything, including this nation. To whomsoever he will, he gives it. Now, did he learn from this? Absolutely, he learned from it. He praised, he extolled, he honored the kingdom of heaven. He realized it after this point in time. Lesson learned. Jesus stated, Luke 14:11, for whoever it is, for whosoever exalteth himself shall be abased, and he that humbleth himself shall be exalted. The world has it backwards. If you are humble, people think that we can just walk all over that individual. They think you're just basically a milquetoast. That's not what humility is about. In so many ways, it's not about that at all. And this is something that is hard for the modern man to understand, but it's always been hard for man to understand. So God blessed this man. He blessed this man with a crop that he probably could never in his wild imagination believe that he would have such a bounty. Such a bounty. So what is he to do? As it states, he realizes the old barns weren't going to hold all this new crop. So he was going to have to tear down those old barns, and he was going to have to build new ones, bigger ones. Nothing wrong with that. That's not a sin. That's not foolish. Well, that's wise to do those things. He was going to store all of this bounty that God gave him. Well, as we notice this, he decides, and this is where he gets foolish. He's going to basically bring that rocker out onto the porch, and he was going to sit back, and he was going to take it easy. Basically, that's saying, eat, drink, and be merry. The rest of that says something along the lines, for tomorrow we die. Well, he was. His life was required that night. Now, it is something I found interesting that A.T. Robertson said about this passage. He mentioned the lack of conjunctions in the phrase, take thine ease, eat, drink, be merry, shows his eagerness to do those things. He was ready. ready. What he was blind to was the source of his wealth. It came from God. He gave all the credit to himself. That's what made him a fool in God's eyes. And so many today are blind to what God has done for them. And we as Christians need to be careful of that. I don't think we're blind for what God has done for us. Sometimes we may take them for granted, but we always should be grateful. The first step to apostasy is ingratitude. It's not being thankful. It's not being grateful. So he was blind to the source of his wealth, and God labeled him a fool. The word fool here is defined as senseless. Another word we're familiar with is stupid, egotistic, and mindless. Why? All these things that he thought were set up for him to take his ease for years were going to be taken away from him that very night. Whose things are these going to be now? Solomon in the book of Proverbs has a lot to say about riches, about wealth. A number of times he mentions about how the wealthy will look at their wealth as a defense against certain things. And it's always good to have some money set aside for emergencies, without a doubt. But this is not what he's talking about here. All these things were going to be left to someone else. In the book of Ecclesiastes, and Solomon wrote this, of course, by inspiration, but the richest man who ever lived, and you read about some of the labors that he had labored in, all the different works that he was able to create in his life as king, there definitely wasn't going to be enough time in his life to enjoy it all, like he would like to have enjoyed it. It troubled him. These things are going to be left to somebody else. Is that a new thought for people today? No, absolutely not. People are still concerned about that, especially the rich. They even worry about it. In Ecclesiastes 2:18 and 19, yea, I hated all my labor, which I had taken under the sun, because I should leave it unto the man that shall be after me. It's almost humorous. Human nature. He goes on, and who knoweth whether he shall be a wise man or a fool? Yet shall he rule over all my labor, wherein I have labored. Everything that he created, he's going to rule over it. He's going to enjoy it. And wherein I have showed myself wise under the sun, this is also vanity. Ecclesiastes 2:18 and 19. This is also vanity. Well, who was his son? A man called Rehoboam. Was he wise or was he foolish? Brother Brantley shaking his head, no. And he was not wise. He was a glorified fool in God's eyes. Instead of taking the counsel after his father died, he's king now. After taking the counsel of the older wise men who had counseled his father, how should I rule them? He chose not to accept that wise counsel. He chose to accept the counsel of the young men. That was not wise. So all of these things that his father had created, all of these works, 10 of those tribes left. It was just Judah and the small nation of Benjamin. And basically, after a while, it just became known as Judah. Those 10 tribes broke off because of his foolishness. The rich man, all this man's possessions were vain. His soul was required of him that very night. Who would these possessions belong to after that? And what good were they going to do for him? What kind of defense would those possessions be for him? None whatsoever. It wasn't his land. It wasn't his barns. It wasn't his fruits. It wasn't his crops. It wasn't even his own life. It was God's. And that is the same truth today. Our homes that we live in, the cars that we drive, the clothes that we wear, the food in the refrigerators, the money in our wallets and purses, in our banks accounts, in our money markets, in stocks and bonds. They're not ours. They're His. We are simply stewards of what God has given to us. And He's watching to see whether we are going to be good stewards or bad. Think of it as being a caretaker. That's all we are. That includes our soul. Are we going to be good stewards of our souls? A good caretaker of our soul? Will we be wise in His eyes, or will we be foolish? Well, the heavenly meaning to this parable. In our day and time, the world would call him successful. Really was. A successful man. He died with all the toys. He who dies with all the toys is still dead. He's still dead. Then he's going to have to give an account. Again, God called him fool, though. Why? Why did God call him a fool? Well, first of all, he wasn't a fool in foresight, planning ahead, preparing. Nothing foolish about that. Matter of fact, that's wise. He wasn't a fool because he was diligent in business. He was a hard worker. He was not slothful. He wasn't, as Solomon states in Proverbs, a sluggard, like so many on our street corners are today. They're sluggards. They're slothful. They don't want to work. Where I lived in Aurora, there were signs right around where the stoplights were. And the sign said basically, don't give handouts, don't give money to this people. All you're doing is enabling them. And people have a hard time with that. Well, I can't pass that individual who needs the money. He needs your money. My guess is he doesn't need it. He probably has more than you do. Not a fool because he was rich. Again, it's not a sin to be rich. But he wasn't rich. And he wasn't rich to the one who gave to him all these things. He thought only of himself. He was called a fool because he received the gifts but didn't give thanks to the giver, to the Father in heaven. No credit went to him whatsoever. He thought of himself, but he did not think of his neighbors. And that count between the rich man and Lazarus, did he give a second thought to Lazarus? Not at all. One of the reasons why we are to labor, along with it being a command, as we notice in Bible class, the reason that we are to work with our hands is to help those who are in need. Ephesians 4:28. We make money to take care of ourselves. We make money to take care of our families. We make money to give back to the Lord on the first day of every week. We are also to give to those who are in need, really in need. Not just want. I want what you have. That's covetousness in a nutshell. He thought of his body, but forgot about his soul. We just sang about this. For what is a man profited if he shall gain the whole world and lose his own soul? Or what shall a man give in exchange for his soul? I kind of like that second part even better. What are we going to give in exchange for eternal life? What is it worth to us? This is Matthew 16:26, of course. He thought of his physical wealth, but forgot about his spiritual poverty. And he was impoverished. He was poor, spiritually speaking. So is he that layeth up treasure for himself and is not rich toward God, as it states in verse 21 of this text. He was foolish because he thought about the ease in this life and not the torment in the next life, which is like that other man that we just talked about. The rich man and Lazarus, while he was in torment. Luke 16:25, thou in thy lifetime receivest thy good things, and likewise Lazarus evil things. But now he is comforted, and thou art tormented. I believe this is a real account. I know some people don't. They have a right to be wrong. Since this is a real account, he's still in torment. After all of these years, getting close to 2,000 years, and it will be not even a drop in the oceans compared to length of time. He'll always be there. He had his chance. He won't get a second one. He sought his own counsel instead of God's. Read Psalm 1, verse 1 about the importance of seeking his counsel. Proverbs 14:12, 16:25. There is a way which seemeth right unto a man, but the end thereof are the ways of death. Back to verse 15 of our text. Take heed and beware of covetousness. What exactly is covetousness? What could you use as in place of that? Well, what about greediness? I don't know if that's a word, but it should be. Greed. Basically, an inordinate desire to have more, especially of what someone else has. You want that. A greedy desire to have more, according to Thayer. In 1 Corinthians 3:5, it is labeled as idolatry. And we know where idolatry will lead us. It's going to be torment for all eternity. In 1 Timothy 6:10, it's not money that's the root of all evil. It is the love of money that is the root of all evil. Which while some coveted after, there's our word, they have erred from the faith and pierced themselves through with many sorrows. 1 Timothy 6:10. The love of money. An inordinate desire to have even more that you have. Someone states, well, I knew one young man, early 30s. He was a broker. E.F. Hutton at the time. You know why they call them brokers? Because they make you broker. But anyway, He was going to go to the Memphis School of Preaching as soon as he made his first $1 million. You know what happens with most people who make their first $1 million? Is that it? Is that the goal? They don't need anything more? No. Now they want 2. And if they get to 2, they want 3. It never ends. And Solomon writes about that as well. It's like a curse upon that individual. Stay up late at night, not being able to sleep because of these treasures. Greediness, covetousness has always been condemned by God. It's one of the 10 commandments, Exodus 20:17. This was the sin that, you remember an individual named Gehazi? If I said it correctly. He was a servant of the prophet Elisha. He coveted after Naaman's treasures that he was going to give to Elisha. His leprosy was removed. You know, Elisha wouldn't take it. So Gehazi decides, I'm going to run after him, and he lied. And he got treasures from Naaman. And he also got Naaman's leprosy for that sin of covetousness. And that's just one example of where this can lead. You remember it caused Judas to betray Jesus. 10 pieces of silver. Ananias and Sapphira to lie to God. The rich young ruler, that's how we describe him, the rich young ruler to deny Jesus, reject him, and turn away sorrowful. I wonder what he's thinking now. Wonder what he's thinking right now. There's an old saying that the simple things in life are often the best. You know what? That's an old saying because it's been around for a long time, but also because it's true. You can take an individual and you can take them out to a 5-star restaurant. Have a meal that one meal may cost $200 to $500. I don't know people like that. So they'll eat it, and yes, it's good. And then the next day, they'll have beans and ham hocks and cornbread, and they'll think that was fantastic. It's the simple things in life that are the best. A little that a righteous man hath is better than the riches of many wicked. Psalm 37:16. Then yet why do we still want more? Why do we desire more? Proverbs 15:16, Proverbs 16:8, Proverbs 28:6 all states this. And then there's Paul's sentiment. 1 Timothy 6:6-8. But godliness with contentment is great gain. For we brought nothing into this world, and it is certain we can carry nothing out, and that's for sure. We won't. And having food and raiment, let us be therewith content. There's the old saying that you never saw a U-Haul on the back of a hearse. Just never seen it. Be interesting. Never saw it. What is a successful life? Simply put, it's a life with God in it. We are here this afternoon because we believe that. We live it. We know it. Just need to be reminded sometimes. But a successful life is one that has God in it. It is one where we are putting Him, the righteousness, first and foremost in our lives, as Matthew 6:33 points out. Seeking the kingdom first. It's not a life of actually laying up treasures here on earth where moth and rust doth corrupt and where thieves do break through and they will steal. Matthew 6:19. That's vanity. People have lost their life savings in a matter of minutes, and they are devastated. They're ready to take their lives because they lost everything. Not if their God is in their life. They haven't lost everything. They still have that hope of eternal life. They still have God in their life. It's laying up treasures in heaven where neither moth nor rust doth corrupt, and where thieves do not break through nor steal, as verse 20 points out. Our treasure is found in heaven, and it is if our hearts are there. And we can, along with Abraham, say that we are looking for a city which hath foundations, whose builder and maker is God. We just need to keep on searching and looking for that city. Talking about heaven, of course. That's a successful life, because that's the life that our Father wants us to live. He has given to us everything that we need and even more. And we should be thankful. Are we living that successful life? Are we laying up treasures in heaven? Not here on earth. That rich man had no treasures in heaven because his heart wasn't there. But ours should be. So where is our hearts this very afternoon? Is God in our life? If he's not, we need to run to him before it's too late. Obey the gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ. Put him on in baptism and start living for him, because that is the only life that is worth living. If you need the prayers of the church on your behalf this afternoon, why not come forward for any need as we all stand and sing.